Folks at home, welcome back to the Crimson Oak Pond, where we had a lot going on this past week. We had the fish truck showing up to deliver some fish. We got Moby attacking two mating toads in the backyard pond. And a visit from Greg the pond guy to help us plant some aquatic plants and tropical lilies. And we even had our first animals start showing up at the new squirrel house. And you're not going to want to miss that. But the fish truck is about to show up. We got the farmers baling some hay in the background. But if you look down around the pond's edge, you'll notice that dark green color is algae. And this time of year, when the water temps start to rise, and we have longer periods of sunlight each day, most ponds will typically start seeing some algae growth. And this is a pretty normal type of filamentous algae, but the one key as a pond owner is you have to take care of it before it gets out of control. And we had a lot of success last year with two different methods. The first was applying a beneficial bacteria that competes with the algae and actually starves it out. But any algae that's able to make it past that will get cleaned up by the tilapia. So the fish truck just showed up, loaded down with several tanks of tilapia. And the first thing we like to do is pump water out of the pond and into the holding tanks to help acclimate the tilapia before we put them in. And today he's stocking a variety of different sizes, but you definitely want to put those adult tilapia in that are too big to get eaten by the bass, because those adults are where we get all the benefits. And tilapia are known as prolific spawners, and as soon as they enter the pond, they're going to start spawning, and we'll be getting thousands of baby tilapia every 17 to 20 days. And adding these tilapia were hands down one of the most beneficial things we did last year, because if you followed along with the channel, from around July to November, the bass fed heavily on them. They would school up together, cruise down the banks, and those baby tilapia were easy targets. And that helped our bass put on a lot of weight, but by adding this additional food source, you're also helping your smaller bluegill population and threadfin shad populations, which will be key to feeding the bass throughout the winter months. But since you get so many benefits from them, I decided to add a few to Cedar Falls as an experiment. And the main reason is because the two pet bass we call Johnny and June have big appetites. The goal is to add 3 tilapia to help produce a reoccurring food source for them. So we got 3 tilapia in the bucket here we're about to release, and the tilapia are the exact opposite from most other fish, in that the male typically grows much bigger than the female. So the 2 little smaller tilapia that have the red fins, we believe are females, and the bigger bluish tilapia is going to be a male. And this little guy doesn't seem to be shy at all. And this is a first for me, but since the tilapia are going to be in here with us the rest of the year, we might as well give them a name. So leave your comments down below for the 3 tilapia. We're finishing up stocking the 5-acre pond, and if it's anything like last year, I'll give you an update in a week or two, and it's going to be a very noticeable reduction in algae. But there are a couple of fascinating facts about tilapia, and one of the reasons they can become invasive and spawn so frequently is because they can change sex. So the males can become females and the females can become males. And another really interesting fact is that there's a specific species of tilapia that is a mouth brooder. And so what happens is after the females lay the eggs, the males fertilize them, and once the baby tilapia hatch, the small tilapia will actually swim into the male's mouth, and he'll carry them around protecting them, as well as taking them to their food source. So he'll bring them to the areas that are heavy in vegetation and algae and plankton, and open his mouth to let them come out and feed, but the moment there's any danger in the area, he sucks them back in to protect them. So tilapia really are a fascinating fish. And we had a handful survive from last year, and it's very interesting how they're all albino. But now it's time to check in on Cedar Falls. Water clarity's looking good, and Greg the pond guy's going to be stopping by to add some aquatic plants. But it's that time of year where we have tadpoles in the pond from all the mating toads. And they're a welcomed addition because they're an excellent cleanup crew. You can see how good they clean the rocks, and they basically feed 24/7. And then when they get big enough, the bluegills will eat some before they turn into a toad and hop out of the pond. But check out this other guest we had visit the pond. It's the first snake we've seen in here, and you all know I'm terrible at identifying snakes. But this doesn't look like a venomous one. But if any of you can identify it, leave it in the comments down below. But you can see the fish don't seem to be bothered by him at all. I think he's a friendly little snake, just looking for a minnow. Although it does make me question swimming in this pond now. But let's check in on 2 of the stars of the show, our little tiger bass we call Johnny and June. And here lately they've been very entertaining because we worked as a team. They love it when I stop by the pond because I spook all of the golden shiners out of the shallow pockets, and they're waiting right there in the deeper water to ambush them. And Ed purposely designed this pond to have those shallow pockets so the bait could hide and get away. But whenever they all group up there, I prefer to see some fireworks. And Johnny and June move so fast it's hard for me to tell which one it is, but it's fun to watch. We even have Mr. Snake over there watching and learning a thing or two. So now let's check in on the prawns. If you missed our last video, we stocked 5,000 prawns in the 5-acre pond, the wetland filter of Cedar Falls, and the rest went into this stock tank. And I've been feeding them a heavy protein diet, and they started out as post-larva, and they're getting big quick, but I am always amazed that they grow from this size to a jumbo shrimp in about 4 to 5 months. So I had this new idea. Since I had these tiny protein pellets, I decided to toss some of them up in the waterfall, the same area that all the golden shiners are hanging out, and let that current send those floating pellets down the stream and see if it would draw some of those golden shiners out. And right away, I could tell that it was working, and you can see the bass are locked and ready. Got him. So if you all recall this big tree that they carved the seats out during the pond build, look what we have down here near the trunk of it. A new tree is sprouting. Wouldn't that be cool if a tree grew out of the base of this tree? So I might should have put a tilapia up here in the wetland filter because we have some algae here as well. But check out these new little fish that hatched. I'm not 100% sure what type they are, but I'm sure Truman, the little bass fry that we added up here, is happy to see them. But here's two that couldn't be happier with the addition of the new tilapia, and that's the pair of bald eagles. They feasted on quite a few this past winter, and already have their eye on them. But look who showed back up. It's one of their babies, and you can see this juvenile bald eagle starting to turn colors. And we hadn't seen him in a few months, but man, his color patterns are all over the place. He's got white splotches on his back, his tail, and his head. So we're happy to see him stop by for a visit. But we got a new visitor, and I'm not 100% sure what this is. Look at that hair. So my guess is it's probably a hawk, but it's kind of hard to tell with this lighting. It's for sure not an osprey. It's probably only half the size of an osprey. But I'm guessing it's some variety of hawk using the Eagle Tower when they're not around. If you missed our last video, we added this volcano pump to help out with the pond's aeration. And it provides a ton of benefits, but I did have several questions about things like energy usage. So with the pond diffuser, with those you can turn them on and leave them on all year long. But these surface aerators provide most of their benefits during the hours of the day where the pond water has the least amount of dissolved oxygen. And a lot of people think that that's when the sun is highest and it's the hottest part of the day, but it's actually the opposite of that. Pond water has the most dissolved oxygen late in the afternoons because the sun's been shining all day and the vegetation has been producing oxygen. But the moment it gets dark outside, everything starts consuming it, and that's typically the time your fish could be at risk. So with this volcano pump, we're turning ours on a couple hours before the sun goes down and then turning it back off about an hour after sunrise. And today's video is brought to you by Element. After long hot days out here at the farm, it's important to stay hydrated. And hydration doesn't just mean more fluid, it's about getting the right amount of electrolytes. And electrolytes are basically just minerals that have an electric charge when dissolved in water. And Element has formulated the perfect amount of sodium, potassium, magnesium, and zero sugar in each pouch to keep you hydrated. And the right amount of electrolytes can help you maintain steady energy, improve cognitive function, have fewer headaches and muscle cramps, and also keep your skin hydrated. So whether you're an athlete, fasting, on a low-carb, keto, or paleo diet, Element can help you stay hydrated and at peak performance. And it's used by professional athletes, special forces, health experts, and everyday heavy sweaters. So if you're interested in checking them out, go to drinklmnt.com/BamaBass, and you can get a free Element sample pack with any drink mix order by using the link in the video description. And each sample pack includes 1 packet of 8 flavors. But the best part is, they have a no questions asked refund policy. So if you don't like it, you'll get to keep the product and get your money back. So do me a favor, go check them out and stay salty, my friends. So one of Greg's friends named Thomas Holt shipped us in this package of aquatic plants that we're not going to be planting in the Crimson Oak Pond, but rather Cedar Falls. So I stored them right here in the waterfall stream while we wait on the experts to get here. And at first sight, one of my favorite things they shipped are these tropical lily pads. And it took all of one day for the toads to get in here and use the lily pads. You can see that string of eggs right there. So more tadpoles coming. And there's some more of those smaller fish hanging out down there with Truman. But one of the lilies they sent is called a Victorian lily, and this thing can grow to be massive. The lilies can grow 6 feet wide and even support a small human. So we might try that out with Oliver later this year.
So the reason that we put the fertilizer near the bottom is because you're going to lose the fertilizer through the top, because it has a couple of drain holes in the bottom, but you know, the fertilizer is not going to leak through the plastic. The fertilizer is going to come out the top here.
So I bet you the roots are already in this. Yep, look at how root bound it already is. And this has been growing for how long?
Oh my goodness, 1 month.
1 month, and look at that. And so most people keep the lilies in containers this big, and in the first month, that's what the roots look like. So we're gonna break a little bit of the roots, right?
Yeah, now this may have a, I'm gonna pull this out here. This is the
Plastic tray.
the little plastic drain tray. I'll pull that out of there.
Now the roots will be able to run a little bit more. But look at the difference in the size of the containers. This, by the end of the season, will look like it with the roots the same way it looks right now.
That's correct.
And that size of a pot, so just imagine how much more nutrients you're getting because of the size of the container, okay? And then there you go, plants, man.
Okay. Also, the width of the pot is more important than the depth of the pot.
To the beach?
To the beach, to the edge of the beach.
So Greg the Pond Guy is going to show a lot more of this on his channel, so make sure to check that out. But there's one thing that's certain. Anytime Ed or Greg shows up, they bring the rain. And I'm not talking about just a little bit of rain. When Ed was here, it rained for 2 days straight during the pond build, and was a big reason we had so much dirt and mud in the wetland filter. And now that Greg's here, we've got a major flood coming. So some of our planning got cut short, but I always like watching the storm footage, and it'll let me know if there's any areas we have runoff coming down into Cedar Falls, because remember, we're trying to keep this pond crystal clear. But if you pay close attention, just above the pond, there's a ditch that carries a lot of water down into a drain, and that drain redirects the water into the Crimson Oak Pond. But it is wild that during some of these heavy rains, that huge drain can't handle that amount of water flow, and here you're seeing some of that water actually flow out of the top of the drain. But fortunately, the storm ended before it could get out of hand. And unfortunately, it dirtied up the water just enough to where we can't see the fish. But you can see when the pond water level gets high, we have it overflow down these rocks and into the 5-acre pond. And that's working perfectly as designed. But one of the cool things about what Thomas sent is some of these lily pads have blooms that come out during the daylight hours, and others have blooms that come out at night. So right as the sun's starting to set, they'll open up and stay open all night, and even the first couple hours of daylight. And so Liz was really happy when she saw these guys show up, and they're known as a red-winged blackbird. But these colorful males will spend most of their day competing with the other males and whistling little birdie songs, trying to lure the females in. And they're very competitive, and one of the traits they have is they like to get up high. And for those that were on the Eagle Tower, that's about as high as you can get. But they'll flex those wings out and try to call the ladies in. And they're not the only ones using the Eagle Tower. We had an osprey show up, and he's having to fight the winds and rain. Probably not going to be doing any fishing today. There's one fish out here that's not too happy with all these mating toads, and that's Mr. Moby. So we're going to be giving you an update on him, the backyard pond, and all the fish that are in it. And we're also going to be doing a spring cleaning. As you can see, every year these plants will get out of control if you don't do a little maintenance and cut them back some. So there's a quick beforehand look, but also let's check out the waterfall area. And there's a noticeable difference between this waterfall and the new one at Cedar Falls. And I love how all the natural mosses and ferns have showed up. It gives it that big time nature look like you'd see down in a creek in the woods. So if you have one of these ponds and you don't have a good vacuum, I'd highly recommend it. I'll give you a quick example of how good it works on these aqua blue stones. You can see it pulls that brown stained dirt look right off the rocks, and you can see that natural blue color. But someone that's not happy with this invasion is one of the Ninja Turtles. But while I was going through pulling some of the weeds out, I heard the big bullfrog. So let's go see if we can find him. There he is. And that's actually not the biggest one. And he hopped right back into the waterfall. We finally found the big boy. He's been eating golden shiners out of our pond for the past 3 years and is a giant. Mr. Dove stopping by to drink a sip of water. So the next part of the cleaning process is suctioning all that dirt and sand and debris out of the bottom of the pond. So we got a pump down in the bottom, and it's pumping through the hose over here, and this goes down to a drain. But you can see that dirty water coming out. We got the waterfall off. It's also got a lot of algae in there that needs cleaning. And believe it or not, Moby and the rest of the fish are down there in that mud puddle. But this is about as low as we ever drain it, just to keep from harming the fish. And here's the results. Got the pond water back crystal clear. Got all the plants cut back, so we can actually see the waterfall now. And we have a happy Moby down there. Yep, it's that time of year where you hear those high-pitched screeches from all the mating toads. And I think that's why Moby was getting a little unhappy. He's probably just tired of hearing them. But it does bring back good memories, because back in 2019, we had the same thing happen with Bonnie, and she attempted to eat the toads, and they played dead, and then after she left, they swam off. There was one other time where Bonnie and Clyde both tried to get one of the toads, but he narrowly escaped. And I think that they put off some scent or poison that keeps the fish from eating them. But now let's take an underwater look to get an update on all the fish in the pond. You can see there's a pair of ninja turtles that are still here, as well as a couple of the bluegills and Outlaw the crappie. This video does not do it justice on how big these fish have gotten. This bluegill that I believe we called Sunny has got to be pushing 2 pounds. And just for size comparison, you can see Outlaw in the back. And last year when we caught Bonnie and Clyde, we accidentally caught him in a net, and I picked him up and was blown away at how big he had gotten. And now I think the bluegills are as big or bigger than him. So that's what a steady diet of golden shiners will get you over the course of a few years, is fat, healthy fish. So if you missed the last video, Nate built this squirrel house and we got it installed and stocked it with some nice treats. So let's see who shows up. And the first one to show up was a big mouse. And I can only imagine what he was thinking, but he starts off by inspecting the living room area, and then he's happy to find all the nuts and treats we left him on the table. So the moment I showed this to Sarah, she immediately wanted to name the big mouse Gus Gus, like the mouse on Cinderella. So Gus Gus had a nice dinner inside the new squirrel house, and it was entertaining watching him because a couple of the nuts fell off the table and into these tight locations that he was too big to access. So he spent most of the night trying, and then eventually gave up on it. And that's where Gus Jr. enters the scene. And the funniest part about it was within seconds of Gus Jr. entering the house, he acquired the nuts and left. And he came back a little while later and got the last one. But if you remember in the last video, after we stocked the table and kitchen area, we decided to put a few bonus nuts in the refrigerator to see if they'd be smart enough to get them out. And Gus Jr. has good intuition and knew that they were in there, but his time got cut short when he heard a predator coming. And it's one of the bandit raccoons. And there's something funny about this angle. It almost makes it look like a Godzilla movie, where an oversized raccoon is peeping in the front door. But after he left, Gus Gus came back and acquired the bonus nuts. So we also set up a camera on the outside of the house to see all the animals that stopped by but couldn't get in. And I'm sure it looks crazy to all the wildlife, because during some parts of the night, there's a light on inside the house, so you can actually see light coming out the windows. But Nate specifically designed it so raccoon and bigger animals couldn't get in it and get trapped in there. But just like the nut bar and all the other stations we put up, the raccoons were very curious and were going to attempt from every angle. But after a while, he eventually gave up. And I've always said that no matter what, George Jones the possum always finds a way to make it on camera. And I have no idea what he's doing this high up in a tree. But he found the house. Now let's see what he decides to do. Oh no, it looks like he's going to try to enter the doors. And the last thing I want to do is show up to a trapped possum inside the squirrel house. But it looks like George is going to test out the waters. And he actually made it in. And he also got back out, so we're good. Gus Gus checking up on the roof for any remaining snacks. So now let's see what happens with the squirrels that we actually designed this for. You can see he's like, this is nice. But I'm not sure what to think about having a grass lawn up in a tree. But unfortunately, Gus Gus and the rest of them ate all the nuts last night, so the house alone wasn't quite enough to tempt the squirrel in. So I think what I'm going to have to do is get up early in the morning and replenish the nuts, so when the squirrel stops by, there will actually be some there for him before they get eaten at night. So it's time for a fish feeding, and today we're going to be feeding the bass a bigger sized golden shiner. This is about twice the size of the ones we typically feed them, but the first thing you'll notice when you're looking down at the water is you'll see that it's starting to get that plankton bloom. And as the algae and other plant life die off, it'll allow that fertilizer to create that plankton bloom, which is perfect for all the bait fish. So as soon as we get the bloom established, we're going to restock the pond with threadfin shad. And that's because plankton and phytoplankton are the sole food source for all the threadfins. And so without that, they struggle to survive, and it's hard for them to live and get established in clear water ponds and lakes. So the green tint is great, and means it's time for another load of threadfins. But speaking of the algae, I took this drone shot a couple weeks ago, and all of that green on the bottom of the pond is filamentous algae. So we got the tilapia added in, and the second part is adding that beneficial bacteria to starve the algae out. Alrighty folks, about to use a product that worked for us last year on some algae. If you look right here on the bank, you can see we're starting to get some algae growth. And it hadn't gotten out of hand yet, but if you let that go for too long, it can completely take over a pond. So this product works in two different ways. There's a liquid formula, and then you just toss some of the sacks out in the shallow parts of the pond. This is probably the worst spot on the pond right here, so perfect place for one of the sacks. So here's one last look at what it looks like today. I'll give you an update in 2 weeks, and we should see some noticeable results. And so about a month ago, I showed you all a project I was working on called the Field Bot. And we've been setting these up here at the farm to help automate some of these daily tasks. And I just want to say a quick thanks to all of you that reached out to help. We got a ton of good feedback and are even working with some of you to finalize the product. But today I'm going to be showing you an update on the Smart Farm app. And you can see here on the left, it's got all of our internal sensor data, starting with the temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, which is good to tell you if the fish are biting, luminosity, infrared, and ultraviolet. And then over here on the right, we've got our alarms, and then some commands where we can turn things on and off, like the fish feeder, the pumps, and we're even going to set it up to where we can control the camera feeds right here within the app. So we got the microphone, which helps us know if the fish feeders are going off, or if the water's flowing. And then we're designing a couple of user interface screens to make it extremely easy and simple for everyone to use. You also have a motion sensor if you want to put these at a farm entrance gate to send you a notification when someone shows up. And you could even tie an output into the Field Bot, which would allow you to open the gate if you wanted to give someone access. But I just wanted to give you a brief update, and I'll continue to give you guys updates as we finalize the software and the hardware and get the Field Bots ready for production. Alright, time to catch a few of these bass, see how big they've gotten. I think I'm going to start tagging the second generation of bass now. They're getting up over a pound. So we'll use this little pit tag injector, and I may make a separate spreadsheet for those guys. There we go. Nice one. Ooh, really nice one. Look at there. Wow. Giant. Check that out. The fish is almost as big as the goat. Been eating good. That is one healthy fish. Alright, this fish is 5'7", and it weighs 3.63 pounds. You love to see him like that. So this fish is named Poseidon, and check that out. We caught him almost exactly 1 year ago, and he has more than doubled in weight. A good sign that those prawns and tilapia are helping. Whoa. That's one of the pets for sure. Let's see which one it is. It's been caught 570827, and it weighs 1.8. Gotta catch the pets every now and again just to see how big they've gotten. And this fish is named Unit, and we hadn't caught him since last August, but he's made a little bit of weight gain since then. Nice one right here, dark. Alright, this fish is 6'9", 660. Weighs 2.79. Alrighty, we're gonna call it a night on that one. And here we have kiwi. And over the course of 1 year, another fish that's doubled its weight. So that's always good to see. This may be the most valuable implement on the farm, the flail mower. I can't tell you how many hours it saves me from weed eating the pond's edge. Because as you can see, it offsets off the back of the tractor, and you can tilt it based on the slope of the pond bank. Gotta love it. But speaking of mowing, we got the farmers out here, and it's time to bale some hay. So as you have seen in the past, we've done peanut crops, but in the winter time, we planted winter ryegrass, and this will help feed all those hungry cows out there. But I find there's something pretty calming about baling hay. You got the mower that goes through, cuts it, puts it in a nice neat pile, and then the baler rides right over the top and scoops it up. And out plops the bale. So with the right equipment, you can make quick work of it, and there's no telling how many cattle these bales will feed. So this is typically the part of the video where you would see us feeding Mr. Tiger, but I got some exciting news. Tiger has been transported out of the 300-gallon aquarium and into Cedar Falls, but you're gonna have to wait until next week to see that happen. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, because I'll have to say, it was really cool watching how he interacted with Johnny and June. But more to come on that next week. Hope y'all enjoyed this video, and we will see you all next time.